I watched him sip his whiskey tonight, so smug in the dim light of our dining room, believing he still held every card. He didn't see the suitcase by the door, or the folder inside it, or how calmly I set the glass in front of him, like a final toast. He thinks this is a marriage falling apart. But what he doesn't know, what he can't even imagine, is that by dawn, his life won't just be empty, it will be gone. I met him 15 years ago in a courthouse lobby. He held the door open, smiled with that careful charm that made women feel chosen. I was naive enough to mistake polish for character. I mistook his ambition for hunger that could be shared, harnessed, built into something greater. For years, I believed him. Through the late nights at the firm, the urgent trips, the endless explanations. I carried the weight of our home, our dreams, our marriage, blind to the fact that he was carving a second life out of mine. The first crack came not from lipstick on a collar or perfume in the sheets. It was quieter than that. Numbers didn't add up. A transfer from our joint account to a shell company I didn't recognize. At first, I told myself it was business, tax maneuvering, a client fund. But then there were phone calls, taken in the garage, voice lowered to a whisper. The smell of cologne he never wore for me. And finally, the deed, a house. Not in our name, but bought with his money. Signed, sealed, hidden. For her. I didn't rage, I didn't cry. I wrote it all down. Dates, amounts, copies of bank statements he never thought I could access. I learned the rhythm of his lies until they became predictable beats in a score only I could hear. And then, one detail. The mistress's name. A careless text left open on his desk while he showered. She wasn't a secretary. She wasn't some stranger. She was the district attorney's wife. I didn't even need to dig further. The universe had handed me the blade. All I had to do was choose where to drive it. I spent weeks crafting the perfect fall. I packed his business trip bag not with clothes, but with files, falsified expense reports, evidence of embezzled funds from his firm, transfers he'd made in desperation to cover his affair. Every receipt bore his signature. Every page reeked of arrogance. I left just enough for him to believe I hadn't noticed. Dinner on the table, a smile when he came home, a kiss that tasted like forgiveness I'd never give. And while he thought he was winning, I was feeding every scrap of his corruption into a neat, explosive dossier. Tonight, it detonated. Not with fire, but silence. He found the suitcase first. "What's this?" His voice cracked on the edges of bravado. "Yours," I said. He unzipped it. Paper stared back at him like judgment itself. He rifled through, disbelief turning to sweat, sweat to panic. I stayed seated, calm as a jury foreman reading a verdict. "You don't know what you're doing," he stammered. But he was wrong. Because while he was busy playing house with another man's wife, I had already placed a call. To the DA. I can still picture the silence on the other end of the line when I told him. How his measured breathing broke for half a second, then steadied. How he thanked me, not with words, but with the pause of a man who had just realized both his wife and his enemy would be dealt with in one strike. Justice doesn't always need a courtroom. Sometimes it's a phone call. Now, as my husband stood before me, papers trembling in his hands, he finally saw the truth. Not the truth of his betrayal, the truth of his insignificance. "You think you've won," he whispered. I leaned forward, my voice steady as steel. "I didn't have to win. You lost the moment you underestimated me." The knock came at the door like a gavel. Uniforms waited outside. He looked at me, eyes wide, a man realizing the cage was already built around him. I didn't move, didn't flinch. I just let them take him. And as the door closed behind him, the silence returned. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean, sharp. He thought he'd built a second life, a house, a mistress, a future. But all he built was the gallows. And I simply cut the rope.